Synd att det går mot den här. Welcome back. How was the lunch break? Great. Good. But in the end, you had some nutritious fika as well. We're all energized for this final presentation of the final presentations of the Challenge Lab 2017. So Johannes and Barkin, you're on stage now, and we will now look into how does bicycling comply with the Sustainable Development Goals, and how can they potentially be cycling scaled up in society. Really interesting. But first, I know you have a question to the audience.
Yes, we do indeed. So the question is, how did you get here today? Which mode of transportation did you use? You don't have to, of course, vote, but it will be nice. And I think we can move.
Yes, go to menti.com, 224445 is the code. You got 4 minutes, 13 seconds to vote. And in between, we will start.
Maybe you can write the code on the board.
Say again?
Maybe you can write it down.
Write the name
Sure.
of the web page and the code.
Menti.com, 224445.
It could be like a video.
I hope it's readable.
There's digitalization, but now this is analogization.
Yeah. So welcome everyone. Thank you for opening up. We are here to present our master's thesis work about strategies to increase bicycle use in Gothenburg. And this is Barkin and Johannes. And for our approach, we know that there are many research going on for technological advancements. But we decided to take another approach, which is Occam's razor, which means that there should be an engineering solution. There should be a solution with the easiest and simplest and the cheapest possible technology that exists. And yeah, here we go. So a couple of weeks ago, yeah, exactly a month ago, some of us have attended the global
Campaign networking meeting.
Of the UN. And there, one of the keynote speakers were the mayor of Gothenburg. She stated that we live in a car-building city, and in the 80s, when she used to work at one of the car manufacturing factories, the car was part of the problem, and now it's the part of the solution. Is it? We don't know. That's why we are here. And one of the challenge labs, the way we work is triple helix, which consists of academia, private sector, and public sector. But on top of that, we know the power of civil society, the influencing power of civil society. So we have added this on top. It's not just us, of course, it's used widely, and this is called quadruple helix rather than triple helix. And the methodology that we have used was backcasting, which is the main methodology of Challenge Lab, but we have also applied it to our specific question. So the first step was the establishment of sustainability criteria. And the present situation, don't worry, it's just flickers. Then we go back to the current situation, and then envision the future solutions, and then link this back to today. And our sustainability criteria, we have formed it, the 16 of us, all the students of this year. And I won't go into details because it takes too much time, But you should keep in mind that there are criteria for well-being: economical, societal, and ecological. So we have kept this in mind, and we will focus on mainly one of them. Or, I mean, I won't give you any spoilers. You'll see. Here we go.
So then we came and analyzed the present situation, and we have a few developments going on. According to the United Nations, in not so far away future, there will be around 10 billion people living on the planet. And by 2050, 70% of the people on the planet will actually live in cities. So 10 billion, 70%, it's around 7 billion people living in cities, which means we have very large and dense cities in the future, which puts a lot strong pressure and demand on the urban mobility. So what do we have to solve these pressures? We have several modes of transportation. One of them is the car. That was discussed before. And we actually see a lot of development ongoing right now. So as soon as the car gets electric and self-driving, we will not have the greenhouse gas emissions anymore. And we don't have a parking situation because they will be parked outside of the city. But we say this, with empty cars going outside of the city, this will even increase the transportation, the mobility demand, and we will even have a stronger problem of congestion. Which then you have several other alternatives. One could be sharing your vehicle. You could use public transportation, which is semi-autonomous already. There's a driver driving for you. But even the public transportation of some parts of the city in the outer outskirts, it's not very efficiently used because there's maybe only 2 people on the bus. So what other modes do we have? We have active mobility, which is walking. Walking is quite slow and you don't really get that far. But there's also cycling. And especially with nowadays developments on biking with electric bikes, this might actually pose a good solution for the mobility demands. So we decided to look into biking, and actually we realized that biking fits perfectly into the 4 pillars, and the 4 sustainability pillars. From an ecological viewpoint, it's a zero emission solution. The only emission you have is maybe breathing. I guess we can neglect that. From an economical viewpoint, it's very cheap, it's affordable. From a societal viewpoint, because of it is cheap, it doesn't have different class level solutions, and because you're not going in an enclosed vehicle, it's maybe even better for communication with the outer world. But even the biggest and strongest impact that we've realized during our studies is actually the positive effects of cycling on your well-being. It hugely increases your health, your mental and your physical health. So this is actually what we got. One of the quotes of the interviews we did says, "Cycling keeps me fit, and as long as I'm fit, I cycle." So we looked into cycling, and we took the Gothenburg cycling strategy, which was issued in 2015. And the goal of this cycling strategy is to triple the amount of bikes in the city until 2025. And we look, how can we support that strategy? Because as we see right now, we don't see that many bikes in the city. So what did we do? We looked at a travel survey from all over Sweden. We interviewed end users, we interviewed experts, and then we used the multilevel design model to analyze this and look at buyers and drivers for that transition. The travel survey comes from the, I have to look now, this is the Nationella Resvaneundersökningen. Don't mind my pronunciation. It collected data from 2011 to 2016, and it was done all over Sweden. But we will look actually into different sectors. Some data we will take from the data from Sweden, some of the Västra Götalandsregionen, and some of the Gothenburg Plus region, which is the orange part, which is the region that you can use using your public transportation ticket. So, all over Sweden, we compared the speed of cycling in comparison to other modes of transportation, and we saw, okay, biking is maybe not the fastest, especially if you compare to a car or a motorcycle, especially. But it's not that bad, 5 kilometers per hour slower than public transportation. Keeping this in mind, this is for all over Sweden, so that's even outside the city. Inside the city, you have a speed limit, so even then the car is not as fast on median. From the distance, it's maybe also inferior to other modes of transportation, especially public transportation and car and taxi. But then, and now we want to come back to you voting, Now we looked at what is the present situation of modes of transportation used. And we will actually look at our audience today. 52% is this?
Public transportation.
Yeah, 52% came by public transportation. I don't know why we can't see it better. Half of you came by public transportation. That's at least some information. The rest is hidden in the internet. We will find out later.
Maybe show image.
I think it's challenge lab image.
Oh, okay.
Can you like reload the page?
Anyways, we will actually look at the statistics. How does it look for the Västra-Götalandsregionen? So we looked at journeys done up to 100 kilometers, and we did count the amount of journeys done on a day and the kilometers traveled. What is important for this kilometers traveled on a day. Usually you start your day at home and you end it at home. So these distances, they are usually, a majority is return journeys. So you can take half of it for the one-way journey. And what was actually puzzling for us is that we realized there's a large count of number of foot journeys done. And that was really puzzling for us. And the other wasn't that puzzling. We see the amount of kilometers traveled by bike were very low, and around three-quarters of all kilometers traveled were done by car and taxi. But that amount of foot really puzzled us. So we thought, why is that? And we came to the question of multimodal journeys. Actually, if you travel by public transportation or car, there's the problem of the first and last mile. So when you go from A to B and you use your car or public transportation, you don't go straight from A to B. You don't use one mode. You go from A to your car park, use the car, you park it, then you go to B. And the same you do for public transportation. So there's always a journey on foot involved, which makes these journeys multimodal. So we looked at the journeys done on foot, and we see when we count them again, actually 42% of journeys done on foot were on the same day with journeys by car. So this really is an indicator for this was used for first last mile solution. Only on second place, 27% were done by foot alone, and then 17% was done in combination with public transportation. Looking at the kilometers, the single mode journeys is the most, which is obvious. The first last mile is just, you say 1 mile, it's a very short distance. So this is the longer distances, of course, you go for a hike, you go for promenera in Swedish, you go for a walk. And this is also reflected by another quote from the interviews. When walking to a train station, you are halfway to the station anyways. So then you can just use the bike for the whole trip. I still use public transportation if it's really cold and windy. So the advantages of active mobility, walking and biking, is actually you can use it for 100% of the trip. You always have parking next to where you want to go. So then we looked at the modal share of the modes of transportation compared on how far do I go on a day. Again, so this is these 5 kilometers is 2.5 one way. And we realized, apart from the large portion of foot, around here is where really car kicks in. And this is where we added the kilometers traveled. So if you look at greenhouse gas emissions that you want to reduce, this is really where you want to focus. And you see that the short distances, there's actually not that much to gain from a car for a bike. So it's not actually this is not really where you want to focus if you want to increase cycling. So we said we split it into several parts. There's first this part here. The first question was, who takes a car for a 2.5 kilometer journey? That's people who go grocery shopping or people who take their children to school. So one solution to get these few people from a car to a bike is actually cargo bike, where you can transport more stuff. The second area is, that's where the lazy people start to come in. So this is actually, this is done journeys, so one way, 5 kilometers, which can easily be done even by a conventional bike or a cargo bike. From then on, this is where the e-bike can be a solution because it helps you in extending your range. And then from this very large part, we realized it's important not to focus on the car only, but on a very smooth integration of public transportation and biking, which means you either have to be able to take your bike on public transportation, or you need to have a bike pool at the end of your public transportation journey, or you, which was the third
We'll
one?
get to
I'm
that.
sorry for that. We will surprise you with the third one.
Yeah, so during our research, we have conducted the end user interviews, as Johannes has mentioned, and you can see some of the quotes from our end users. But anyways, I will tell you a bit about how we kept on with the interviews. So at first, we had the thought of interviewing people who have given up their cars, sold it, and now they're cycling instead to commute. But this only gave us very, very, very tiny proportion of people who cycle. And then we decided to open this up, like with iterations, to make it to cover more barriers and drivers from the region. And then we have included the people who have never driven car. Some of them they don't even have driving license. And some of them have their car still parked in the garage. They don't use it. They use it when they go out of town. And some of them, they used to cycle as main mode, and then something happened, usually getting married and having kids. Something happened, and now they can't cycle because of reasons, but they want to go back. I won't go into all of the quotes here. You probably have read them already. But I can take one, maybe. Yeah, so the last one was the one that struck us the most. One of our interviewees, they said, why are the roads for the cars are in a better condition than the bike lanes? Cars even have better suspension than bikes. Why do they have them? Not the suspensions. And then we have contacted the experts cycling who work in cycling industry. So we have contacted the National Transportation Agency, also known as Trafikverket. We've connected to Regional Planning Authority, Västra Götalandsregionen. We've connected to local transportation agency, Trafikkontoret, and a local parking solution provider. So there we have collected the challenges that they are facing with the services they offer. One is understanding the problem. We always say that we want a sustainable city. We want that. We all want that. But what is accessibility in a sustainable city? If the citizens can't move from A to B in a sustainable city, is it really sustainable? The lack of directions for cyclists. River crossing is a major issue. Public transportation and cycling integration. New business models for sharing solutions. Car and public transportation users being locked in to their choices. Limited human resources working in the industry. Administration. New business models for parking solutions and construction sites causing disruptions, which will play a larger role in the very, very near future. Anyhow, we have the ongoing projects which complement the cycling movement, which are infrastructure developments. They are constantly going on. E-bike trials, try a bike program. Another try a bike program is foldable bike trials, the only kind of bike that you can take on public transportation with you without paying. And bike sharing solutions and secure bike parking solutions.
So we took all of these and we used the multi-level design model to analyze it, not to be confused with the multi-level perspective that's been used in a lot of other theses. The multi-level design model actually speaks of 4 different levels, 4 different systems. So you have the product technology system, which is more about the technical solutions. This is a cargo bike, a foldable bike, an e-bike, for example. You have a product service system, which is the infrastructure provided, not only the bicycle lanes, but also where do I buy my bike? How do I get it maintained? Do I have insurance for it? How do I finance it? Then we come up to the social technical system, which is more from the governmental side. And this is about incentives and regulations provided to increase the bike movement, up to the societal system, which is about the societal acceptance of cycling in general. So we identified barriers and drivers in all of these systems, which we show here. In the societal system, the major barriers we found was actually security, which is very well represented by that picture here. Bike theft is a huge issue actually in the city. And we put here topography and weather. Very important, the perception of topography and weather. When we spoke to cyclists, they say, actually, as soon as you start cycling, you get fit a mountain, a hill. It's not a mountain here in Gothenburg, it's a hill. It's not a problem for you anymore. And once you cycle every day, you realize, actually, it's not raining that often. It's not raining the whole day. If I move a little, like my journey, half an hour, two, or behind or in front, I can actually get around most of the rain. Drivers are definitely the positive effects on well-being. It's the flexibility of the solution. Another driver we identified is actually education on people, education on how to use a bike, how to cycle, but also education on us engineers when providing bike infrastructure. And as well, as we mentioned before, it's an affordable mode of transportation for the masses. Looking into social technical system, we identified several barriers, which is, for one, a ban of bikes on public transportation. Also, the free school choice was mentioned as a barrier. Now the school can be further away, so I don't take the bike anymore, which is very connected to dispersed functions. If the different functions are far away, I might not take the bike because I feel like it is too far away. But also things like tax refunds. You get tax refunds if you use the car or the public transportation, but you don't get it if you bike. Drivers on that side is definitely safe parking. If you don't want your bike stolen, you need to have safe parking. The Try a Bike programs were really successful to lower the threshold for people to enter using it. And then lowering the speed was mentioned as one of the drivers. If we lower the overall speed to 30 kilometers per hour, actually the cars won't be that much slower because you're rarely faster than 30 kilometers per hour. But for the bike, the whole system is a lot safer. And reclamation of space, of course, to prioritize the space in the cycling infrastructure. Now we go to the product service system. In the product service system, the major barriers we found is lack of secure parking, here again, and confusion, which is also connected to the education of the engineers. So we need to have cycling infrastructure. The cycling infrastructure in Gothenburg is designed a lot by people who drive cars, so they don't really think from a user perspective. Drivers on this side is ways to cross the river. So this natural barrier, so if you have ways to actually cross it with the bike, and equal investment for both for all modes of transportation, but also bike sharing systems, an extension of the existing bike sharing system. Then the last one, product technology system, we didn't focus on that much because, as it said here, we don't need any new bike inventions. It's all out there already. We don't have to put so much in R&D. So what's barriers? Maybe a puncture, and maybe the price right now of an electric bike. And drivers is definitely the self-marketing of the cycling solution. So if I see my neighbor taking a cargo bike, I might actually realize it is a good way and a cheap and fast and independent way of traveling, and the wide range of technological solutions, which you could see, like the different solutions our interviewees used ranged from all kinds of solutions.
Yeah. Now we're going back to the main picture, and we have identified the future solutions. Or we have organized a workshop with stakeholders in the region. And first we will present you the results we've obtained from them, and then our proposals. These are the proposed solutions from the stakeholder workshop. In societal level, there is definitely the power of cycling education, not only teaching people how to cycle or how to fix their own bikes, but a combination of all, and also supplementing this with the education system, such as having cycling sports at schools. And another one is the key is affordable mobility for the masses. Everyone should be able to be mobile as they like. They don't have to pay this much cost to buy a car or pay for any kind of mass solutions. Another one is socio-technical. On the socio-technical level, we have the need for equal investments for both car and cycling networks, and economical incentives for cyclists, reclamation of space from the car network for street side parking, for instance. Oh,
Excuse me. That was small technological failure.
yeah. And the academia's role is quite important when it comes to cycling. That means the education of engineers, urban planners, architects, the people who build the city. And the seamless connection of public transportation and cycling pool, which means you should be able to access both networks with one integrated card or pass or whatever. And on the product services level, we have the prioritization via the infrastructure. That means you don't have to take detours if you're cycling. Like there is Aşebersgatan, the street that's right in front of us. If you're cycling, the cycling lane ends, and then you have to go to the other side. You have to cross the street, but you're only going downwards. Why do you have to? Anyways, prioritization of cycling during the roadworks, such as this E45, Hisingsbron, and West Lankan projects. And we already have a movement going on to make people give up their cars. They won't be able to drive them anyways while the construction works are going on. And another one is secure bike parking spaces. While doing this thesis, both Johannes and I, we have gotten our bikes stolen. So it happens to everyone. And during our research, we have one of the results that we have come across was that 14% of all the bikes are getting stolen every year. That means every 7 years, of course this is an exaggeration, but every 7 years, all the citizens, they lose their bikes. I mean, we have to do something about that. And allowing bikes on public transportation is one of the solutions. However, this was debated for other security reasons. Extended free-floating cycling network. We have the examples of that in Gothenburg. They are small startups right now, but we have the examples in Berlin, for instance. There are two major investors that have a free-floating cycling network. And on the product technology level, the ones that were identified were the marketing of the solutions that we already have, smart clothing and gear, and having showers at workplace like we have here. It's a small incentive to your employees. And the proposed solutions by us, you don't see anything on product technology level because we're not here to do technological research on cycling, but rather to distribute the information. On societal level, the communication of positive effects on well-being, we really need to focus on that. We really need to deliver the people that their well-being will get higher as they cycle. We've experienced that ourselves. But anyways. Engagement with youth as future cyclists. If you start with the people who are 5, 6 years old right now, and the project, the cycling strategy, says that we want to have 3 times more cycling trips every day in Gothenburg in 2025. So if we take someone who is 5 to 8 years old right now, they will be 15 in 2025. We will have already reached that goal. Those people won't have to buy a car to be mobile. Anyways, Another one is cycling education for newcomers. This is an important issue because well, it's a fact. I mean, people don't know how to cycle. They might want to learn it, but if you introduce them, if you offer them free cycling classes, they will most probably take it. And there are examples of that in the Västra Götalandsregionen, anyways. But why don't we have it in Gothenburg? Socio-technical level, we have increase of try-a-bike programs, like foldable bike trials and e-bike trials, and seamless integration of public transportation and cycling, as I mentioned earlier. And on product service level, secure parking solutions at major transportation hubs and working places. We've identified the need for secure parking, which means a closed space, sealed from the weather conditions for wear and tear, and more importantly, for theft. And most people have that in their residential place, but not at the workplace. And we certainly lack of that in major transportation hubs such as Brunnsparken or Central Station. Anyways, temporal and spatial prioritization of cycling during the construction phase, the Westlänken and E45. Further expansion of bike sharing system. The one we have right now is quite limited to a small part of the city. You can't even cross the river if you get the bike. Otherwise, you will have to pay huge amounts of money just because you've taken it up to the other side of the river. The roadmap, as we've proposed. So we've placed 2025 as our one of the milestones. And with the Westlänken project, they are now excavating. They're breaking the soil. Why don't we offer a secure bike parking on the 3 stations, Haga, Korsvägen, and Centralen? Why don't we have it? And another one is cable car. We have the cable car, which I think the construction has already started. Why don't we have a cable car as a bike transportation system to cross the river on top of the solutions we have? And bike sharing solution. This is the current Styrokstär project the agreement will end in 2025, so they will start to have another tender.
Which is a great chance to increase the system and to increase the area, to expand the area, but also make it more usable, either free floating or with electric bikes.
Yep. And this is our project, Unicyklar, to incorporate the people who are here for education. We have 50,000 plus students, higher education students here in Gothenburg, and they mainly have to use Västtrafikcard, public transportation. This is subsidized anyways. Why don't we offer them their own bikes or a bike sharing system? This project has stages, and you can find more details on our thesis. Anyways, and the first one is marketing, which can start already tomorrow. We can start distributing the knowledge, the advantages of well-being improvements of cycling tomorrow if we want to.
And the last one is the prioritization of cycling infrastructure during the construction, which will be ongoing in the next years already. If we build a bridge, build it for the bikes first, and then we fix the car part, this will already increase, and people will start biking and see the positive effects, and therefore might stick to it. So lastly, we decided, or as our conclusion, we said there's 3 areas of focus that you need to think about when increasing the cycling movement. One is simple communication of the positive effects. That's quite simple. You don't really just need to market it. The next one is lowering the entry threshold for people who are not cycling with, for example, try-a-bike programs or bike pools. And the third one, to improve those who are biking already, to make sure that they keep biking, that they're happy doing it by improving the infrastructure. And by that, we say thank you and open the stage for questions.
Thank you. And you thought you could open up for the audience questions. No.
No.
First, it is the opposition.
Yes.
So, Anton and Vaso, please come on stage. For 10 minutes, opposition.
Yes. No, you have to be mean.
I try to. So, we are very happy to oppose your thesis because we started working together in the beginning and we saw all the baby ideas grown up into a proper thesis. So well done. It's a well written, very nice structured and interesting thesis.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So, our first question. Where did you buy your time barking? Okay. Now, I was wondering about the approach that you had in the thesis. We talked a lot about top-down and bottom-up. So, who do you address? To whom you address your thesis? Are we looking at the policy level and look for solutions and suggestions there, or you refer to civil society and you want to raise awareness? So it's a more bottom-up approach.
It's both, definitely. It's definitely both. And civil society is already working on it. We have those circuits everywhere. Well, they're popping up everywhere in town. And they are certainly an influence on increasing the cycling share. And also the knowledge as well. Because they're not just giving away bikes that are like, that doesn't need any fixing, but you learn how to fix as well. And on the other end, maybe you would like to, or I can continue.
Yes, it's both, and that's why we use the multi-level design perspective, because it has several levels and you need to work on all of them. So yes, we have the bottom-up approaches with the society, but also the unicycle, where we say, okay, we as students, maybe even us as almost not students in the future, but very still close to that stage, we can actually do a lot in that. But we also work very closely together with the authorities to support them because they also have a great interest in increasing the cycling. So it has to be both ways to actually succeed.
Okay, kind of a connecting question, and you kind of answered it, but if you look at like the you want to scale up cycling, and there is talk about acceptance towards this transition or resistance. Different groups of stakeholders. Do you feel that you will find acceptance from the citizens or from the municipality and the organizations and companies underneath it, or is it the private actors that will be
Well,
against or forward?
Great question, actually. I see a potential in regulations.
Mhm.
If you regulate the traffic, that means taking away the space from the cars. People won't be able to drive their cars anymore, so they will have to switch to cycling or the other active mobility solution, walking or public transportation. So there's definitely a great impact on the regulation side. And another one is incentivizing cycling or just remove the incentives on people who drive their cars, which will also create a surplus in the budget. On the other hand, what do you think?
Yes, it's you have different reactions. We received very positive reactions from the authorities. They were very open for giving us information and for support, and they really see as a future solution. For the actual end users, we interviewed mostly people who cycle already, so they see the positive effects. They like it and they want to spread the noise, spread the word. And if you look at businesses, and that is maybe reflected by the quote that we put in the beginning, it can have, especially at the city to Gothenburg, can have an economic impact. Yeah. Because by providing a more affordable mode of transportation, people will spend less on another mode of transportation. So that business will have to find new business models. But we have seen that development anyways. There will be less cars around in the city. There will be more shared. From the terms, and that's why we use backcasting and not forecasting. We don't want to use what we have already, just make that a little better. We use backcasting because we say we have to look, how is it supposed to look in the future? And maybe we even have to give up a little what we have right now.
Okay.
Nice. If I have understood it correct, there is a focus on private bike ownership and more on this kind of solution. What about the bike sharing system in the town? We know that there is a contract until 2020, and the contract is with a commercial French company. Do you see any problems in this collaboration? What's your thoughts about that?
The contract it's done with a commercial company, but there's actually just a technology supplier. So the system is provided by the city, and the city plans it. So they just need someone to supply the bikes and supply the system, and that you will need someone else because the city can't produce these bikes and put up the stations. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, but why? And actually,
Yeah.
a follow-up question
Yes.
is, after 2020, I asked about the problematic, if there is any, with a contract with a company that has nothing to do with bicycle and mobility. And if you have any suggestion about after 2020 for the new contract.
Yes, and we definitely think that it needs to be, the city's looking into how to expand it after that, and we think it should be actually organized by one of these authorities. What you can see, for example, in China right now, large cities in China, is that there's several private companies, just startups doing it on their own and putting masses of bikes out in the cities using public infrastructure, and there's a lot of bikes being just thrown in the river, ending up in the trash. And from a sustainability perspective, this is not what we want. So we want to have some kind of structured way. Of course, we want to increase. We see the bike sharing as one of the solutions, but it has to be controlled. It has to be regulated. What the examples that we can see from China, some of it we can actually take as inspiration for it, but we don't want to have the same as we have in China in the future.
Okay. A question going to Europe instead. I know Amsterdam and Copenhagen, they are seen as kind of bike cities. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it do rains from time to time in those cities as well. How do you know how they cope with that fact? Is it just a different mentality, or do they have technical solutions to it?
They don't fight the weather. They have raincoats.
Okay.
And that's how they deal with the weather. And the same in China, actually. Most of the people in the major cities, they just have thick raincoats which protects them.
I mean, there's, I think, a Swedish saying there's no bad weather, there's just unsuitable clothing. Yeah. And it is a mental barrier. It's not a problem. And as we said before, it may be rain on a lot of days, but it doesn't rain 24 hours a day.
So, while interviewing your stakeholders, do you think that you miss any perspective? For example, we talked about policymakers and civil society. Did you look at the roles of employers, or do you think that it can be something to further research?
One of our stakeholders during the workshop was from a private company. And they had already introduced some of the incentives in their workplace, such as having a day to fix your bike. You just deliver your bike there, they fix it, and then they deliver you at the end of the day. This is one. And they also have a bike pool for people who have to do businesses in the city, the same company. So there are examples of that, definitely, and it needs to be expanded. Absolutely, I'm for that. It's not a solution that you can start from one point. It's a multi-point solution. It has to be.
And maybe when talking about further research, what we realized at some point when we're already doing the research is the end users we interviewed, most of them were using the bike already. but we want to get users who don't use the bike. So we should, for further research, we had one interviewee, and that we specifically chose because they didn't bike yet, but we're close too. So if you want to do further research, focus on these people and focus even more on these mental barriers.
Yes, because you
Yeah,
One
one more
last?
question.
Okay.
Yeah.
okay, now what
I don't know.
okay, I actually okay.
You,
So
you can pose it as
the
audience.
is there a risk of having too much cycling, or the actually negative effects of scaling it up too much?
I don't see that. We have all the roads. We have all the roads. We don't need to cycle on the cycling infrastructure. So we have all the space. There is no such a thing.
I wouldn't really say so. There's actually there's some research done from Copenhagen. This is maybe not the firmest, so we didn't include it in our thesis, but we're just saying about the societal cost of, for example, driving a car, or the benefits of. And actually, it says that driving a car every kilometers costs the society. Riding a bike actually puts a benefit to society, similar to the friskvårdsbidrag, because people stay fit, they can continue to work, they don't get sick. They're happy. A good, happy society is a good society, I guess.
Nice.
Okay.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you very
much.
for the answers.
Thank you for the
Thank you.
questions.
For the questions. Okay, now we open up for the audience. Thank you, Anton and Vasa. Right, Cedric?
Yes, as Vasiliki mentioned, so the contract with GCD was going to, and that's in 2025. And as far as I know, they don't know yet what they want to do with GCD, could keep it on us. So, and then you mentioned signature kits. So do you think that maybe that's a better alternative to bike sharing?
Well, it is one of the solutions, definitely. Both of them, they have to coexist. We think, I think that they need to coexist. Probably Johannes agrees.
I mean, secret shortcut is not about sharing. You get a bike, and then it's a personal bike then. It's just passing the bike after not being in use anymore to the next one. So in that sense, it's not of sharing in a way that once I move out of Gothenburg or I can't use it anymore, that someone else can use it. But I would see it as two different things actually.
So for the solution, they need to coexist.
I was just thinking, because I grew up in Umeå, which is a much smaller city, so it's like 110,000 residents, and I never knew a person who didn't bike growing up. And when I moved here, it was like everybody went to public transport. And I wondered, do you think that's because it's a bigger city, or is it any other factors that could influence this change?
So your perception is
My
that
perception.
people use public transport here mostly?
Or cars. Like
Okay,
students,
okay.
students use public transport here.
Mm-hmm.
In Umeå, everybody bikes. Nobody takes the bike.
Mhm.
If you're a student, because it's like easy to bike and it's expensive to take the bus compared.
How's the topography of Umeå? Is it hilly? Does it?
It's like here.
Okay.
It's not very like here. It's not very hilly, and there is not.
But the area that's covered by the urban
Yeah, maybe.
network is much larger in Gothenburg.
Yeah, it's
Gothenburg
much
is
larger.
yes. So that's an important part.
Mhm.
The dispersion of the functions in the
Yes.
city, as we've mentioned. So I mean I don't know Umeå case, but this is my best guess.
Yeah.
And maybe, as you said, everyone you knew is biking, so it's like a natural choice. So we realized once you have a major, like a favorite mode of transportation, you can even be locked into it.
Mm.
And that's one of the problems Gothenburg has. And then it's connected again. This is a car building city. And in the 80s, a lot of infrastructure was done for the car.
Mm.
And there's a lot of reasons why the car was supported. So this is also part of the mindset. Of course, it has a lot of different factors, but this could be one of this why it's different. Yeah.
Spiros.
Thank you for your presentation. I really like your slides, by the way. Thank you for this.
There's a copyright on it. There's a copyright on.
Yes. So I have many questions, but I'll try to be short. I would like you to tell me or ask, what do you think is your added value to authorities like African tourists or the regional or even the private sector? What your thesis adds to the current approach over this issue?
Well, there is definitely having them all sit on the same table so they can exchange their ideas. This is one of the goals of Challenge Lab. So I think we've managed to do that. Not only by integrating the civil society, public sector, and private sector, but also the end users. We have contacted them. They have no affiliation with the civil society movement at all. They are single people. So we've taken their points of views and delivered them in the stakeholder workshop to the stakeholders. So this is one of our added values.
Yeah. And maybe on top of it, actually, when we started cycling, when we started the research.
Well, we've done that too.
A lot of people, when talking about biking, they say you need to have proper infrastructure. And this is, as we said, this is only one level. And this is actually more about keeping those happy who are cycling. So maybe what we added is this. And that was quite interesting to see from the authorities. They had these trial bike programs, and they could tell us they are hugely successful. So in one program, they gave away 200 electric bikes for 3 months. And after this period, over 50% bought that bike. Over 90% said they would recommend going by bike to other people. And also over 90% said they will continue using the bike in the future. Yeah. So it's a huge success, but we still didn't see a clear message. Yes, we want to upscale this. We want to do this more because this seems to be successful. So that's one thing of the added value, plus the communication as well. Just communicate the present advantages. That's a low-hanging fruit in that sense.
Also, there are some regulations that binds them, such as, my first question when we got to know that they have actually succeeded having more than half of the bikes sold after the trial bike program, I asked them one thing. Did you have any type of advertisement on the bikes? Anything? It's not a company. It's not a company. It's a public authority, but they can't place anything. They can't even deliver people a jacket, like a raincoat, the nylon raincoat. They can't even provide that because of the regulations that we have. So this is another barrier within the barriers.
And one last thing maybe is, and that will be shown in the mobile share development over the distance, is to think about multimodal integration between public transportation and cycling. It was seen by some authorities, but there's huge resistance by the PT providers. They say it's unsafe. We don't have, and some of it makes sense, but they don't have the trains right now where you can take bikes. But there's still there to overcome this solution and to say if we really want to achieve, we need an integration. And when we buy new trains, we need to buy new trains where you can take bikes on the train. And nobody, we asked about lean band and the cable car. Nobody even thought about using that for taking a bike on it, which is, again, an obvious brazen. I mean, it's big enough, you can take a wheelchair on it, why can't you take a bike on it?
Yeah, was there one more question in the back, or did I miss that?
There is two here.
Yes,
First of all, I would like to ask you, what is the major reason for theft of bicycles?
There is no follow-up. There is no follow-up. It's easy as hell, and there's no follow-up.
And there's a market.
Yeah.
And there's a market.
So after sale is you would say it's a major reason, right? Like people steal bikes to sell them after.
I mean,
people steal bikes because they
metal
can. People steal bikes because they can.
Yes, they can, and they don't have to fear anything. And in the last 2 years, I had 3 bikes stolen. After the second time, I stopped going to the police because it takes me every time 1 hour to stay there and state it. And then they tell me, yeah, so we probably can't do anything about it. They don't even have any force, any human resources devoted to that. So, yes, it's a quick fix to make money.
And another way of dealing with that is having a shared bike solutions, because I mean, if you have a Sturrock style bike stolen, you can't you can't market it. You can't sell it to no one. No one will buy it with that huge sign over it. So that's another way of dealing with that.
Second question, maybe I may continue.
Okay, I have a follow-up question. Okay.
Not a follow-up, it's another one. Somebody in practice.
Kind of follow okay, so how do you see the future of Sturrock style then?
Well, having extending it, meaning spatially, covering more space on the city.
Yeah, but then if it's still GCD they won't do it.
Say it again.
If it's still owned by GCD they won't do it.
No, I'm not. The company is not a question. The company is not a question. We are talking about the project itself.
Can I add something that is important here, because it mentioned that the company. The company was just the manager of the whole. It was they won the tender. And yes, but the whole plan was done by the city.
Yes.
And it's so sloppy that they were given a space to set up bus stops, for example, like for commercial reasons, instead of paying directly. And now the student state has and owns bus stops that when they leave they can just tear them down, for example. So it's not the company itself, it was the planning from the beginning. And that does not it's not only the traffic or it's more about the city planners of the website.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about a shared bike solution that is governed by a central body, then it needs to be extended. It needs to be much more user-friendly than it is today. You can't just go to the stations and rent a bike like you can do in Paris, for instance. So that's another obstacle on the way. And what else do we have? I think that's about it right now.
Yeah, and we discussed like what would make it the whole system a lot easier, and there might be two scenarios. One, to make it free floating, because one of the disadvantages of the stations, there might not be any parking left, for example.
Or bike left.
Or bike left.
Yeah, like in Schalmersplatz.
Yeah. And you could even like use incentives for if you take it up the hill, for example, you get a cheaper price or you get a refund. I mean, there's a lot you can do. So one could be free floating. The other is an example from Copenhagen where it's electric. But if it's electric, it of course can't be free floating because you need to charge it. So they have a station bound electric, but with an electric bike as heavy as that one is, also probably because of that, you can cover the whole city. And the third one is it's designed to use maximum half of an hour, and then it gets really expensive. Why? Why can you not just take it one day to go out to Delft? It's not, and actually the price of the bike and from the business model, that's not what they make money with. Then they make money with the adverts on the bus stop. So actually you can forget about why does it have to be so expensive after
So I'm saying that for Sturrock to develop more, they should rethink the whole idea.
Yes, there's their models. Yes.
And I think that's in progress right now.
I can just add to that on the Hisingen side, there is one company called Clear Channel that runs the ads and the bus stops. And on this side, the company is called JC Decor. And they run the bus stop ads and the bus stops. And they run Styrostel. But the city bought off the ads from Styrostel and called it the Gothenburg humor name. And put their name tag on it, you could say. So that is also a barrier why it can't be crossing the river. It's a whole other procured ad / bus stop system there with Clear Channel. So it's also another barrier. I just want to interject with now the gentleman in the back again, and then Dinesh.
I'm a little skeptical about the support from very, very high levels. My reasoning is this. the state generates money from taxes from fuel consumption. A lot of fuel is consumed in the cities by cars. If people turn into bicycle, the state will lose that amount of money, and they use that amount of money not only to support the infrastructure in the city, but also outside the city where the bike cannot go. So there is two perspectives here. One, how they will cover that cost, how they think of covering, and second, will it create any tension between groups?
Well, you can continue. I just have to, I just want to make one point. When we switch to electric cars, the value of fuel consumption will be lost anyways. And in Sweden, we don't produce electricity from fossil fuels. So that's one thing. And another thing, what you wanted to add?
I mean, to that threat, there's maybe two solutions to that. Either you can pull out of a climate agreement and start supporting coal again, or you can, as this country does and this region does, say, yes, we will fulfill, we will go. The Västra Götalandsregionen has the goal to by 2030 to become fossil independent, and I think 2050 to become fossil free. They have it in the strategy. So they're not counting on that income any longer. They see if we want to generate income, we might have to do it with different green business ideas.
Tax that again.
And tax that again,
Because
yes.
they will lose money from not having coal, right?
Yeah, or I mean, create jobs and then, yes. But now we get to very high society, political level.
I'm talking not me myself personally, but if it's the society which changes to completely cycle-based society, so you think the society is going to be fit, but also you're forcing people who are lazy to go into fitness. How do you see this mindset of this lazy change to be fit, or are they forced to become fit by doing that?
Not only laziness. There is also the aspect of disabled people. So we have to provide services to them, not by forcing them to cycle or forcing them on an electric bike. So we need the support of public transport network in this sense. And that's something that we can't just turn our backs to.
And maybe to that as well, we don't want to force them, but that's the communication part. We just want to tell them. I mean, for me, the most surreal example is always people take their car to the fitness studio, take the elevator up to the fitness studio, and then they go on a stepper, and they pay money for that. Actually, one of the interviewee, they became a child, and they said that they didn't have the time to exercise anymore. So then they switched to cycling because they would just combine their commuting time with exercising. And that was one of the biggest benefits for them.
To add on, or not add on, but the other aspect was it, like the convenience aspect. You have a lot of convenience. If I have to say that, you can change your mind in your car even if it's raining or not, it's snowing, hailstorm, whatever it is, you can take it to a shop. But the same case, you have to plan well in advance, or in terms of how it's going to be, or say in terms of how do you see this as a challenge of convenience being affected?
Well, bike has also its convenience benefits, and cars' convenience comes from some kind of inflated benefits. It has benefits if you use it, or just to own it on the side gives you an extra flexibility, that's for sure. But this is how it should stay. You shouldn't add on top of that. You shouldn't pay people 8,000 kroner per month just because they drive to work, just because they've chosen to live elsewhere in the city. We should remove those inflated benefits of owning a car.
One more thing, just quickly. One great advantage of not having to plan ahead when using a bike is you don't have to plan ahead when there's rush hour, because you're not going to be stuck in traffic jam. And rush hour is in Gothenburg almost. That's every day. And people plan around how to get around. Okay, now I drive a little later to work because I don't want to be stuck in rush hour.
Unless you're stuck in the front of a truck. Sorry for that morbidity, but you won.
No, I think your thesis is a great contribution the study itself on issues regarding this very hot issue of cycling in Gothenburg, and it's quite clear for me also at this point where you stand in the question. So my question to you is: do you feel that there is an issue of bias, and do you think this has influenced you when you have approached the stakeholders, that you already know what the solution for the future should be, and if that has influenced the people you have gathered and the information you have gotten through your when discussing with them?
Well, it might seem like we have a bias, and I mean I would accept that. But my ideas about cycling have developed while researching. And in the beginning, we have discussed it, and we agreed that this would be the easy fix to mobility solutions. That was all our previous thoughts. And
yes, to the bias. What's maybe interesting, because I mean in Challenge Lab we spent the phase 1 finding our topic, and actually at the end of this phase 1 we had a different topic than this one.
Yeah.
And then we realized, okay, with this topic we can't work. So that was not our initial agenda actually. And then we actually, this what we showed in the beginning about the cars, maybe not the perfect one, public transportation is maybe not the perfect one. We iterated. And that's where we went to this topic. So maybe that gives us a little bit of a legitimation of our research. But then once doing this, yes, of course, we mainly used stakeholders who work with cycling. And as we said, when interviewing end users, you should also interview people who are not cycling. And we thought about, when we organized one workshop in between, and we thought about actually inviting someone from the other side to it, and we finally decided to not do it because
that would have antagonized the whole.
Yeah, we would have then we would have a scapegoat
Yeah.
in the room, and everyone would just shout at that scapegoat and not really think about solutions.
And adding to that, I mean, at first we've all 16 of us have been gathered here to solve the issues linked to sustainability. So, and our major focus was on mobility. So that, I mean, if that puts us on a biased state, then we probably are. But I don't see it that way.
So you mentioned that by using it make you happier. Is there any research that shows it, or
Yes, our master thesis.
any psychological?
There are papers about the health aspects in terms of physical health, and this is what we got from our end user interviews. That especially people with children, they say they have time to process the day. They go biking with their children. They are closer to nature. So it is the subjective views of our interviewees, but it was collected from all of our interviews. So we took it and analyzed it from a scientific standpoint.
Okay, we can consider the question session is over, and we can also conclude that you have succeeded in your presentation. So give this gentleman a hand. And this is also the finalization of these 2 days, and also concluding the challenge lab. You still have your final hand in also with your master's thesis. But it's been such a great journey these 2 days for also, I guess, for all of you teams as well, getting to know even more about your peers' master's thesis. We have been looking at how blockchain can put the mobility as a service squared and disrupting that. We've been looking at how housing developers can be part of sustainable mobility as well by enforcing lower parking norms and having the courage to do that. We've been even looking at the river through Linné, again, a reborn river through Linné. and youth empowerments in suburbs and getting their voice heard. Industrial symbiosis Tinder system for waste streams, very interesting. And also macroalgae as a solution for a fossil-free region. And now finally we've been looking at how can we scale up cycling for a truly sustainable city. It has been a very diverse set of master thesis topics, and that is also what characterized the Challenge Lab. And one other interesting aspect is also how can your master thesis be integrated? It's a master thesis of itself, maybe. So I would like to thank you, and John and Johan, do you want to say something as well? So you have some more remarks on the days?
I am, not on the day, but I'm quite amazed that we landed in all these presentations, given all the tough discussions we've had over the half year. So I'm very proud of seeing all these presentations, and obviously you have all developed a lot since we met. Some of us met already during the course and at the lab, so I'm proud and amazed about the journey all of you have made in the group as a whole, and also in the teams and on the individual level. So that's a short reflection.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I just totally agree with you, and I'm so much looking forward to keeping contact with you all afterwards. We stay in touch.
And everybody, guests here, and you guys joining in via the live stream, we are open for collaborations, and also if there's something that was interesting you particularly, you can always contact us through challengelab.org or our social media channels. And we are open, and we want to integrate, and we want to transform. So thank you, and we say also hello to Andreas on Hawaii. And maybe we should, if the whole Challenge Lab 2014 would like to stand on stage, and we can take a little photo, maybe, as an end.
Turn off the projector.
Otherwise.
Okay.
I guess some people, 2 rows.
Yeah, maybe we can.
I'm not gonna stand behind once again.
We can stand in front of you, like, yeah.
Should I be in the front or?
You should lay down.
Yeah, like this.
On the table.
Woo! Can also go for the
champagne.
I have taken it up.
Good.
That's just one person.
Yeah, it was like.
You